Now, you may say the Pokemon community is a toxic place, and while it does, like all communities, have its fair share of toxicity, the Pokemon community does a really good job, I think, at praising the Pokemon Company when they have these really good, new, innovative ideas, specifically as it pertains to things that take an old design, a design we're used to, a design we love, and change it in some way that allows for the original design to still exist, but the Pokemon to be imagined in a different light or maybe even get stronger. These are things like Mega Evolutions, regional variants, even cross-generation evolutions. But there is something that I feel like we have not, as fans, taken a moment to talk about how cool it is. Welcome back to the Lumiose Post, where we talk about all things Pokemon, and today we're going to be talking about the craziest Pokemon form we've ever gotten, and that is the Bloodmoon form of Ursaluna. So a quick recap for those who don't know, we have a Bloodmoon Ursaluna. This is seen in the Scarlet and Violet DLC, the Teal Mask. In Kitakami, there's an Ursaluna. It's like the stuff of legend in Kitakami, and basically it's an Ursaluna that swam over to Kitakami and from like presumably Hisui, and just got changed by the different environment and perhaps even by its long journey to Kitakami, and it altered its appearance, and not only its appearance, but even more about the Pokemon. Its stats changed. Also, its powers changed. It has a brand new move that the previous Ursaluna could not get called Bloodmoon. So this is crazy. This is absolutely absurd, and it means something really, really big going forward, in my opinion. We, again, talk about how much we love regional variants and all these things that, you know, we can now speculate on going forward. Like, we can now speculate with Pokemon Legends ZA, ooh, what new Mega Evolutions will they give us? Could we see Colosium forms? What kind of Colosium forms could we see? What about cross-generation evolutions? What of that could we see? But there is the fact that we could see forms like Ursaluna too. They could randomly take a just completely random Pokemon. Let's say I'm going to pick the first one I see on my background, Torkoal. They could take Torkoal and say, this is a Torkoal that underwent all this weird change. It's not a regional variant. It's just this one specific Torkoal that went through a ton of stuff and is now really fast, has like no defenses at all, and can use this crazy new move. Perhaps they could even change its type similar to a regional variant. And now you may think, okay, but how's that any different from regional forms? You may not see why this is such a big deal to me, but I am happy to do my best to break that down. And that is just, it's another way of making the Pokemon world feel a little bit more real, right? Sometimes they find an animal that has some kind of rare mutation that makes it different from all other species, or something to that effect. It has a behavior that's different from its other species. And I love that Pokemon's doing that. They're not saying that all the Ninetales in Alola are Ice type. No, instead, they're saying that this one Ursaluna is completely different from other Ursaluna. We're not entirely sure why, but we think it's a result of this and that. It's a theorist's dream, obviously. You know, there is the fact that while it seems to be from environmental pressures, the fact that Ursaluna is tied to a moon, tied to the full moon specifically, but the Blood Moon Ursaluna seems to be tied to a blood moon, makes me think that somehow lunar phases had an impact on this. But either way, it's just crazy, and it's crazy to think that this could be a norm going forward. We could get a Pokemon like this every game. I think it'll be fun if, just like the Scarlet and Violet team got to take a Pokemon that the Legends team created and kind of do a spin on it. Wouldn't it be fun now if in Legends ZA, the Legends team goes and revisits a Scarlet and Violet Pokemon, say Satitan, and does a spin on it, the special Satitan in the Kalos region that swam here from Paldea, or crossed over here from Paldea, and has been living in the sewers of Lumio City and is now altered into this poison ice type ferocious monster that's just tearing up people down there in the sewers of Lumio City. Things like that just blows my mind. It's also cool too because Ursaluna is very similar to this Bloodmoon Ursaluna, rather, is very similar to cryptids in our world. Things like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster. And so I love having that vibe around Pokemon that aren't even legendary Pokemon, right? Like, sure, whatever. You can do this and say, well, Latios and Latios are the same way. They're these Pokemon basically treated as cryptids. And you're not wrong, but it's even cooler here because it's like a, hey, you know what this Pokemon is, but for some reason, this one is so much different. You know, the anime has done similar things to this, like having a giant Bulbasaur that lives in the sewers over in the Orange Islands, or even the Crystal Onyx, guys. The Crystal Onyx, all this time we speculated, could it be a regional variant, a Paradox Pokemon? Is it something to do with Terrastal? But, you know, the fact of the matter is, it's very likely that Crystal Onyx is just another one-off form like Ursaluna. And then that's when we have to get into the name of this form, right? The name of the Ursaluna form is the Bloodmoon form of Ursaluna. And so we've now taken that term and we've kind of gone nuts with it and used Bloodmoon for any speculation for future forms of Pokemon. And that is correct if you're willing to tie them to a Bloodmoon specifically. But if we're just talking about doing these one-off forms, they don't have to be Bloodmoon forms, right? Like, they can be anything. I think maybe we need to more so say that there's a big term and Bloodmoon is one type of form under that umbrella term. And I would just call these one-off forms. I've said it a couple times now already, and that's just what I'd call it. And the intention here is to signify that this is just a special case of a Pokemon having some kind of alteration or some kind of mutation or adaptation, maybe even evolution, that other Pokemon are not having. You know, again, it's what differs it from a regional form is that a regional form is going to be the case for all of that Pokemon species living in that region. All Vulpix in the Alola region are Ice type, but not all Ursalunas that are in Kitakami are going to be Bloodmoon. In fact, Ursaluna aren't even supposed to live in Kitakami. This is just this one random Mon doing this. And again, I cannot emphasize how much I love this and this idea of doing it forward. And it doesn't, again, have to be tied to the Bloodmoon. It can be tied to environmental pressures. It can be tied to weather. It can be tied to even the legendary Pokemon of that, you know, region, perhaps. Like, we know from the anime that if we're going to keep up with the Legend ZA speculation, that Zygarde kind of protects the environment and specifically has kind of chosen some Pokemon to help it in protecting the environment. We see this with Greninja, Ash's Greninja, working alongside Squishy to keep protecting the Kalos region from these weird roots. So maybe now we have in-game a Pokemon that has kind of become like the herald of Zygarde, so to speak, and has been altered and maybe even has a special power it got from Zygarde. Again, I'm obviously giving a little bit of credit to Zygarde and implying that it can do more than it has shown it's able to, but it's not that hard to believe, right? Like, if Arceus is responsible for noble Pokemon, you know, which have these glowing frenzy state, then why the heck couldn't another legendary maybe alter a Pokemon for it and kind of make it a protector of it? I kind of think, I know I do a lot of Marvel references on this channel, and this definitely won't be the last one, but I kind of think of how, like, Apocalypse, that's a character in Marvel, he will have these 4 horsemen, and he will enhance them, and enhance their powers, and maybe even give them new powers while they're under his, I guess, control or working alongside him. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about how Bloodmoon Ursaluna, it really does change everything going forward, because at any point, they could give us a one-off Pokemon form. At any point, they could say, well, this is an Arcanine that underwent this dramatic change and is electric type, but you only get this one Arcanine per game. Breeding it won't work. There's no Growlithe that does this. All Arcanine in this region aren't like this. This is one Arcanine, giving so much uniqueness and so much lore behind this one Arcanine, and making that capture feel a little special, right? Like, even more special than a legendary, almost, to me at least. It felt it felt more legendary than a legendary. Am I crazy for thinking that? Let me know what you think of this kind of one-off form going forward. What you think of Bloodmoon Ursaluna specifically in the comments below. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, and let me know what other kinds of ideas for a one-off form you could see happening in the future, specifically for Legends EA. And until next time, I will see all of you later.